name's Hirsch. I'm a 30-year-old farmer from Latham, Western Australia. Yeah, it's a family farm, typical family farm from the region. We farm about 6,000 hectares of wheat, barley, canola and lupins. So the area we farm at Latham, it's in the medium to low rainfall region of northern WA wheat belt, and it's certainly not known for having particularly high rain or the ideal environment for growing crops, but the efficiencies and making the most out of every drop is what we're focused on up here. And the technologies and strategies we've developed over the last 10 years have really all seemed to have lined up and focused on that one thing, which is making the most out of the moisture that we get. We've got a lot of different soil types on this farm, but one of the main ones being is a typical yellow sandplain we've got, which is prone to a couple of constraints which have historically held back a lot of the yield potential. Compaction, which we're combating a bit with deep ripping and controlled traffic, trying to keep it softer and let the roots down go for longer. And the other one being is subsoil acidity and aluminium toxicity, which we've been combating with the use of lime application and topsoil inclusion plates to get the lime down into the subsoil. Yeah, so I was really pleased to be part of the Gen Y project at the Liebe group. I think the best thing about the group is the shared learnings and the shared experiences from other farmers. I think there's a lot of good things about the group, but that's probably the number one for me. And any sort of project to really encourage and get young farmers into that, trying new things and learning and sharing about what works and then what doesn't. I think it's really good, and I'm being pleased to be part of that and absorb some of those what other people are doing, and also share about our own trials. My Gen Y trial I've chosen to do is early post-emergent deep ripping in canola crops. It might sound a bit backwards thinking, and I think it surprises a lot of people, but the issue we're trying to address is the fact that deep ripping and canola seem to go hand in hand in terms of you've got a very yield responsive crop to deep ripping on that sandy soil types, and deep ripping produces a lot, it stimulates a lot of weeds, so being able to have a crop where you've got the ability to manage those takes that from a negative to a positive. The risks are though that canola can be difficult to establish at the best of times, and deep ripping can make that worse. And we sometimes don't always have the best conditions to be able to carry out deep ripping in the summer. So what we've been looking at is coming back later. Even a lot of guys are doing ripping straight after the crop's been planted, but we're even looking at coming back once the crop's out of the ground to see if we can still get a response in that crop without, in line with traditional deep ripping time, which might be in the summer. If we can do that, then it might just add a bit of flexibility to our operation. So it's something we've looked at in this trial. Yeah, some of the risks of soil amelioration in the summer and then going into canola is it can be a bit of a fickle crop to get started anyway. So depending on the different soil amelioration methods, whether it's deep ripping to spading or anything, can find that it leaves the soil fairly fragile, and wind erosion and even heavy rain can really play around with the seed depth that you're getting at the end of the day with that canola, and that can severely impact the germination. We've seen that a lot this year. We've seen in our trial, we've seen the establishment rate of canola on deep ripping reduced by 60 to 70% from our control areas, and so I think it is highlighting that risk, and it's sometimes difficult to know how much yield penalty we're getting from that if it's masked by that deep ripping yield benefit. The trial site was already deep ripped in 2017, but being a typical sandplain of the region, it self-compacts naturally as well as through vehicle compaction. So based on the soil penetrometer that we used, we could tell that there was a hard pan there. We've left the treatments we've left have been a control, where there's no ripping at all, and we've just seeded canola into it. We've also got the second treatment being a standard ripping practice, which was ripped in February under ideal ripping conditions. And then the third treatment was ripping post-emergent, which we ended up doing, while we were targeting about 4 to 6 leaf, we ended up not getting into there to about 8 leaf. And that was done towards the end of July. End of June. I can repeat that in. But yeah, when we thought the soil moisture would still be quite wet, but given the season, it was actually quite dry when we were going in then. So yeah, it was far from ideal conditions, I think, to carry out the trial, but I still think we've got some really valuable learnings from it. Yeah, the initial results from the trial so far have shown that we have reduced the establishment of canola by about 60 to 70% this year with the February deep ripping. I think what's caused that is the softness of the soil setting into it. The bar has sunken in. It's created a little bit of unevenness at the surface, and that's meant that the seed depth hasn't been entirely consistent, particularly going into that softer soil type. Combined with the marginal start, we had a germination event of about 6 mil of rain, which I think has exacerbated that. So it looks like it's caught up a little bit in terms of its, they've got bigger plants in that reduced germination and from the deep ripping with more pods on them, but it'll be interesting to see whether it can yield as much or even perhaps overtake the controls. With the early post-emergent deep ripping, we ripped that at the end of June, and that had about the same numbers as the control, which was about 7.5 plants per square metre, which was a little bit less than ideal for this trial. I was hoping to have plenty of plants, around 20, but when we went in there, we did notice we were getting some plant depth from driving over the plants with the tractor, as well as the tines going alongside and probably pruning some roots. We didn't lose as many plants as what we thought we were getting. Went from about 7.5 down to about 5.5 plants a square metre. But we also noticed that the plants were sort of stunted, and that's probably from a bit of root pruning, maybe some trampling going on. And so development-wise, the early post-emergent ripping canola plants were probably about a week behind the other ones from there on in. And so it'll be interesting to see if those plants can make the most out of that ripping and get their roots down later in the season now and compensate, or hopefully even outperform the grain fill at the end of the season. So we'll find out come harvest, put it that way. I think where it's going to fit next year, we'll keep this trial up. We'll probably do larger areas depending on the yield results this year. But I think being able to get the tine spacing on the deep ripper to an effect so that we can perhaps inter-row rip the plants when under really wet conditions so we can minimise the root pruning and the plant damage. I think it'd be nice to see it done with the tractor, which might take out some of the plant injury from the wheels, trampling over them as well. So I think there's definitely potential in this to add flexibility to guys' programs. I guess like anything, it's just trying to find the right equipment for the job. And I think if we can really isolate, some of those negatives out of the trial, and we might see, we could perhaps get to a stage where early post-emergent in-season ripping could produce the same yield increase that traditional summer ripping does without some of the risk involved. So it's been a pleasure to be part of the Liebe Group Gen Y Paddock Challenge, and I really look forward to getting a few more faces to the group next year and getting some fresh ideas that hopefully keep challenging the status quo of hopefully what we've done in this trial. So I can't wait to continue to be a part of it.